Kentucky Senator Rand Paul appears to be leading the pack of potential GOP contenders for the White House in 2016. Boy, it is super early, but maybe not. Senator Paul winning the CPAC straw poll this weekend with 31%. His nearest competitor, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, 20 points behind. Dr. Ben Carson made a good showing, political insiders will tell you, with 9%. Governors Chris Christie and Scott Walker in the middle of the pack, and along with former Senator Rick Santorum, Senator Marco Rubio, Congressman Paul Ryan, and Governor Rick Perry at the bottom of the pack there. Let's bring in the Fox News political insiders. And by the way, you can join in on the conversation on Twitter at Harris Faulkner, hashtag FRW, and at FN Insiders. John LeBoutillier to the left, former Republican congressman for New York. Pat Caddell in the middle, a former pollster for President Jimmy Carter and Fox News contributor. Doug Schoen, former pollster for President Bill Clinton and Fox News contributor as well. Good to have you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Harris.
And good to be back. I was off last weekend. I'd like to say I watched.
But
I didn't. I relaxed. But I was with you in spirit.
Good.
Doug, what does Senator Rand Paul's win at CPAC and the straw poll mean?
It was a decisive win, and it speaks to two or three things. First, anger, indeed, even disgust with Washington, a desire for privacy because of his strong criticism of the NSA, and also he has spoken out against international entanglements and involvements, and this is a reflection in the Republican Party, a significant segment of the Republican Party, for those sentiments.
So that's what's working within the room,
right.
But he's pretty popular otherwise in some corners of the country. John, what works for him?
Well, I think what Doug said, he's libertarian in a party that's becoming more libertarian, believe it or not. We heard nothing over 3 days, really, about social issues. In the past, the right gets all trumped up on that. They've sort of, at least this group, which is younger and more libertarian, and they do like the NSA stuff. He was the filibuster against drone strikes. He looks like a guy of principle, and this crowd voted several times for his father.
Right.
And he's won this before, too. This is a Rand and Ron Paul event.
But what I'm reading, even outside the room, it's that demographic, that younger demographic that he is resonating with. All right, so I buried the lead tonight. I have to. Some of you already know this because you put video up of Pat Caddell, who wasn't just at CPAC yesterday. He took the podium and spoke. You were kind of the warm-up act for some of the biggest names on the podium. First of all, what do you take away from the conference?
Well, what I took away from the conference, the thing that interested me the most was in their straw poll, the 51% of these basically conservatives, and you would think Republicans, who disapproved of the Republican performance in Congress. I know I spoke on some of the themes that we've done on Political Insiders, including Benghazi, but really going after the political class. And I want to say the reception was warm, to say the least.
Harris, I have to interrupt to say Pat had 3 standing ovations.
Really?
It's going to be renamed CPAC for the Caddell Political Action.
I got in there and got out. I just want to, but those.
Don't we have some? Did we put some video of him up? Because you.
Oh my gosh,
we have some.
No.
We ran a little bit of it last night. Now you mentioned 51%.
There you go.
That's when you. Yeah, there you are. That's when you take Rand Paul and Ted Cruz together, is what you're saying, right? So you're saying that. So,
no, I was saying that the 51%. They had several other questions. Specifically said they didn't like the Republicans in Congress, and I was speaking out against, as we've done here, the political class and the place. Well, they were animated about it, and the leadership wasn't, but they were. But the voters, what I'm saying is these themes, these anti-establishment themes. Rand Paul is an outsider in that sense.
Yeah.
Ben Carson finished 3rd. In this, he's not even running.
This also reveals the extreme divisions in the Republican Party. Sarah Palin spent the bulk of her time attacking the Republican establishment.
Well, she was bipartisan.
She was.
So was I.
She was. But, this is a Republican crowd. I don't think there was a Democrat in the room, but the divisions inside the party are as stark as ever.
Let's watch a little bit of Governor Sarah Palin, just what you're talking about. Let's watch that.
I do believe that the eyes of America are open. Unfortunately, though, some would want you to just hit the snooze button and roll back over like, hush, America, go back to sleep, little lambs. Go back to sleep. Close those eyes. Some of these folks are in the GOP establishment.
That was almost as large as the applause for Pat Caddell.
Well, you know what Pat told us that's interesting off the air? That when he spoke, he got the standing ovations going after the establishment. When he left the podium and went inside where the organizers, who are GOP establishment people, they wouldn't even talk to him.
Why not?
Well,
I was like, I don't know. I guess they didn't think it was. There were a lot of.
Were they surprised to see a Democrat at CPAC?
No, they're the ones that invited me. I mean, but I think
you
it was.
upset apple carts, Pat.
When you upset out, and I don't care. I'm a Democrat there. I mean, I was attacking everyone in both sides. But it was clear that there was a chill. And that's because the division is between the mainstream of the country, we keep saying the political class, and what I was arguing to the audience was there's going to be other alternatives here.
Very interesting.
Other than Pat, though, watching all the speakers that we've seen, but here's what I didn't see enough of this week. The big picture of the decline of America. And that the way to fix it is we have to fix this political thing. Because the leadership is what is causing the decline. And until we address that, you talk about it all the time, Pat. Doug and I try to talk about it. But
I talked about that yesterday, that was one of the three big things of response, was about the vision about the country, where we're going.
Was that a missed opportunity, do you think?
Look, it was a huge missed opportunity to outline what's wrong and what we do about it thematically in a way that is inclusive, optimistic, and forward-looking. Harris, you made a point about 51%, if I have the numbers right, who voted for Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and Ben Carson.
Right.
Those are anti-systemic votes, anti-Republican establishment votes, and they are people who reflect, as I said before, the real anger and disgust of this audience.
All right, before we go to break here, at the end of the day, it's about who can take on the Democrat contender, correct? And there's a poll that Fox News took this past week that I want to pop up on the screen, and it asked, who would make a good president? I want you to look, and I think among the Democrats, seeing Hillary Clinton's name atop it isn't a ground-shaking new piece of information. But Rand Paul in second position. Your thought, Doug?
It again reflects the anger in the electorate. I don't believe Rand Paul can win a national election. I don't think Ted Cruz can win a national election. But it would be a mistake to underestimate their appeal and to underestimate what Pat was talking about, which is strong anti-systemic, anti-Washington feeling.
But the interesting thing about that poll was that was asked to people, do you think it would be a good president or not a good president? Hillary Clinton was 50-47. Everyone else was negative. It suggests to me, even when whatever order they're in, Jeb Bush was surprisingly low. But it tells me that when you have basically most people saying that the people they're considering voting for would not make good presidents, they're still looking for something.
They're looking. And meanwhile, you got Hillary at 50. In a country where the numbers we've seen are like 67% of people want to get rid of the entire political class, the establishment.
Fox polls.
Yeah, and Hillary, to me, is the establishment. She would be actually easy.
So why do you think she leads that poll?
Because no one's attacking her. She's off above it all at the moment. No, she's
interesting. The game hasn't really started.
As a friend of mine said, she is a balloon looking for a pin.
Wow. Real quickly, Governor Chris Christie, New Jersey, this past week was supposed to be his comeback week. He's had some pretty high-profile GOP events. Your thoughts, Pat?
Well, I thought, apparently the audience, he did well with the audience there. He didn't
poll too well.
Didn't poll too well. I mean, he polled better than nothing. But
not much.
The reception, not much. But the problem is he's still right now damaged goods, and you can see it in the Fox poll numbers where he ranked very low. And people also said in another poll that they didn't think he could be president. That they thought it would hurt him, just like a lesser number even thought Benghazi would hurt Hillary Clinton. Everyone needs a message. What's missing here is what Doug said. There is a moment, there's a huge vacuum, a big message and a big vision would catapult anybody at this point. But none of them seem to have that.
All right. From Twitter, Layla tweets, "Holy Pat hashtag Caddell." At CPAC 2014, he was on fire.
But
So
he
there you
was.
go.
Harris, we have tried, and Pat especially, to speak and give voice to the anger, frustration, and distance of the American people from the political class. Pat did it, and look, there were some rumblings in the room that Pat should get into the straw poll.
Interesting. All right. Real quickly, Paul Horvath from Twitter says the GOP is Democrat light. The GOP will never win an election with this attitude. Let's flip the switch. Republicans are looking to hit Democrats where it hurts in the midterm elections and beyond. That's in just a few months. We want to know what you think. Where are Democrats' most vulnerable spots on big issues like the Affordable Care Act / Obamacare, the economy, the IRS, Benghazi scandals? On Twitter right now, CRF Radio writes Dems are most vulnerable on the two issues low information voters most understand, the IRS targeting people and NSA spying, #FRW, very good. And we've got the Fox News political insiders back, John, Pat, and Doug. Pat, I'll start with you. Where?
Well, I think they're vulnerable on three big things. One, the biggest one being Obamacare. I think the second is, it would probably the economy, the fact that it's not working for a lot of people. And by the way, no one in either party is really talking about that. And the third is this growing issue of the rule of government, overreach of government. That's what part of the IRS is, part of Benghazi. A sense that they're going too far. And I think that's partly the weakness. But right now, the biggest thing is Obamacare, and the numbers are horrific.
Independent 02 on Twitter writes the Democrats' definite weakness on health care.
Oh, well, that's absolutely true. But Harris, I think to be fair, we have to acknowledge that the Democrats' greatest advantage, bluntly, is the Republicans. The division that we saw at CPAC is the only reason why Obama and the Democrats have a chance of holding the Senate, which is, notwithstanding the issues of vulnerability that are very real, the Republicans poll about 20%, and it's tough to win a national election like that.
All right, real quickly, can we put the numbers for delays and changes up on the screen? And then, John, I want you to talk a little about this. This looks like a talking point for somebody. Even if it's just a random person at the grocery store, if she or he happens to run into the president, why so many, Mr. President?
Right, and it's proof that that Obamacare obviously is not doing well. The White House never admits that sign-up numbers are bad. They don't talk about it. But when they keep changing things every week, that's proof that they know it's worse than
John,
without
just delaying the implementation.
For political reasons.
Yeah.
They're straight out political. It's naked political reasons.
I want to go back to one thing Doug just said, to echo it. On the best thing the Democrats have is the Republicans and their behavior. And to bring up quickly Darrell Iss's performance, after last week on the show, we mentioned how he had blown it last Sunday about Lois Lerner's going to testify. Turned out she didn't testify, and his behavior that day as a chairman of a standing committee in the House was a disaster politically. Okay?
He has apologized.
It's not enough. He cannot behave that way.
The problem is that is what Washington is about. You had Harry Reid get up in the Senate and say anybody who's saying there's something wrong with Obamacare is making it up, the horror stories. Right. You have ICE acting this way. These people keep acting in a way that drives most Americans, Democrats,
there's an even more fundamental issue. The Democrats have what I think is an inadequate agenda, which is redistribution. The Republicans have no agenda other than opposing Obama, no pro-growth, optimistic, inclusive agenda.
Here's the danger. This thing of, as I said in my speech, of let's not discuss any issues, let's go underground, and if we just don't say anything and surrender everything, we'll win because of Obamacare.
All right, back to Twitter. Austin Barrett, because we've asked people, so we want to include.
Yes, sir.
Dems are most vulnerable by making open threats and not holding up to them, like what the president did with Russia. And also, it's interesting, the pundits have said even Ronald Reagan couldn't win right now. That's from Tigerland. We'll talk more about that, because I know you've got 10 seconds.
Weakness, and that is a big problem for Obama. He has become the appearance as a weak president.
And right now, Raging Patriot writes, when will we ever talk about replacing the IRS? Conservatives can win on flat tax, national sales tax. Both of those are hashtagged. John?
Well, when Steve Forbes tried running on that, it was very popular at first, and the more the public looked at it in the New Hampshire primary, it became unpopular. So it's still it can be done, but it's got to be a slightly different.
Dave Camp came out with a tax reform plan that moved in that direction last week. The silence from John Boehner and Mitch McConnell was deafening.
No, he went blah, 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 the speaker. But look, I would keep waiting for someone to propose the flat tax on the basis of if you do it, you will unemploy half the lobbyists in Washington. That's the greatest argument for this, because they are all rigging the system.
Let's talk about Obamacare and a Fox News poll that has the words scary, angry, and optimistic in it. Look at this.
And pessimistic.
And, well, pessimistic is the biggest one.
Yeah.
So here's the question. People were asked, how do you feel about the health care law? 49% said pessimistic. Now, this was any party included. They did break it down by party, and about a quarter of Democrats who took the survey said that they were pessimistic. But when you look at this, the breakdown here, only 21% say they're excited.
Right. This is the crisis that the country, and I dare say the Democratic Party, is facing. To use my favorite expression, bottom line, this could cost the Democrats the control of the Senate, the anger and fear that exists.
And that is why the Republicans won't put out a positive agenda on any issue, including this tax reform thing. They don't want to have anything get in the way of this.
But they're not even speaking to this in any sense of saying how to make it better, which I think is a problem. But I mean, it could be a problem. But here, with these attitudes, pessimistic, scared, angry, this is not the kind of language. We have a system that will not address what is an obvious failure. Democrats want to do it for political reasons. Republicans want to have politics for the gain. But the truth of the matter is, can you imagine this thing would be this big a disaster and no one will get rid of it or fix it?
You talk about it.
Well, they have delayed it for 2 years now. It turns out you can keep your health care for 2 more years because they had to change it to make it happen.
If your policy still exists.
If you haven't already.
Doctors are bugging out of the system.
So
Hospitals aren't taking it.
I'm seeing kind of a trend on Twitter. Why do we care how President Obama is doing at this point? He's not running again.
No, we're all Americans, Harris. We all care about this country. We all want to succeed. If the Republicans were able to offer an inclusive message, then they would be much stronger. The Democrats haven't. That's the crisis facing this country.
These numbers, these latest decline, almost the lowest Fox has ever registered.
38% for this president.
This is Ukraine. This is weakness. This is a president who people should be scared. The weakness being displayed in overseas and what is going to be challenged on us, and the proposal we have an army less than was in 1940 and a navy 1914.
And I also think politically why we focus on the president is he's the leader of the Democrats,
right.
And how he goes is going to do. But for political purposes, they'll lose the Senate if he's weak.
I've got 6 seconds to say thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching.